Aziz makes a good point that we do need more students and graduates in STEM areas, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, just to that end. Let me just address the issue about the Student Loan Forgiveness Act of 2012. But also to that end, I partnered with the White House, Infosys, Wayne County Community College to now train Metro Detroiters for those software jobs that are here in this region but are going unfilled. So that is an issue. But to clarify what my bill provides, it provides conditional loan forgiveness. And it's conditioned on every borrower making payments of 10% of their discretionary income a year for a period of 10 years, which is the normal term of a student loan. So everyone must make these payments, but it's payments according to your income and an amount equal to a 10-year period. If you have a balance of federal loans left over after that 10-year period, then those loans will be forgiven. And here's why we're doing that, why we're proposing that. Number one, it'll help the financial stability of that family. We're also forgiving loans that parents may take out. But also, too, we recognize that those loans are provided to you not just for your benefit so that you can get an education and get a better job, but it's for this country's benefit. An educated citizenry actually makes us stronger economically. So that's why we don't want to saddle you with that debt for the rest of your life. We want you to have your money freed up so that you can invest that money, you can start your own business, you can buy a home, you can get married, you can purchase responsibly. All of that will create jobs in a sustainable way. So we say, yes, you borrowed that money, you're getting value from it, you've got to repay it back. But let's make the repayment affordable and manageable. And let's give you a fixed period of time. Because the way student loans are set up right now, if you, for some reason, get laid off or get sick or get divorced and you aren't able to make payments, well, the capitalized interest will just increase your premium more and more, even if your income is going down and down. That's why student loan debt is now over $1 trillion. And it's a debt, as you know, there's no statute of limitations. The government can come after you. It doesn't matter if you go bankrupt. You can't really discharge these debts in bankruptcy. So it's a debt that's truly an onerous burden, but it actually undercuts what we promote in this country is that get an education, sacrifice, go to school, you'll live a better life. The student loans are so great on some families right now. The American dream has really become a nightmare. So this is conditional student loan forgiveness. Everyone must repay on their loans. Now, the last point I'd like to make on this, and I'd like to respond to questions that deal with governance, because maybe perhaps I can shed more light on those issues, is that for those of you that have been making payments on your student loans for the past 10 years, once my bill is enacted into law, your payments will be credited toward that 10-10 plan. So many borrowers could find their loans forgiven almost immediately. We want to free up people's money so they can invest it and create jobs and actually live that good life that we said that they would get if they graduated from Wayne State University, not put them in debt for the rest of their lives. And again, this is a debt that I think people really want cut. The federal debt is important, but we need to deal with that long-term over time. When I talk to people around this region, very few people talked about the federal debt. They were talking about credit card, underwater mortgages, and student loans. So I listened to that, and I decided to address that in a very sweeping, comprehensive way. It is resonating with the public throughout this country. You'll find that Congress will act, not because a politician asked them to, but because the public demanded that they act.
Hi, my name is Robin West Smith, and I'm a part-time instructor here at Wayne State in the Department of Urban Studies and Planning. And my class that I teach is an undergraduate course, Introduction to Urban Studies. I assign my students in their midterm exam the question regarding your proposed Detroit Job Trust Fund. Now, what I'd like to know is, can you basically compare your Job Trust Fund proposal to what you're recommending with respect to the bailout and see if either you can piggy the two against each other or onto each other, or literally get one over the other? Which would you think would be more appropriate?
Well, first of all, your question gives me a great opening to talk about the impact that law can have on urban development. So my short answer is this. The emergency relief that I'm asking for is separate legislatively than the Detroit Jobs Trust Fund. I'll explain what that trust fund bill is about. But they complement each other. One is more of a short-term relief to avoid bankruptcy and avoid state takeover, which I believe would really undercut the vitality of the city, based on our experience with the state takeover of Detroit schools. But then merge it with a long-term development plan that I've outlined in the Detroit Jobs Trust Fund. Let me just do this, and for the sake of time, I'll be brief. The Detroit Jobs Trust Fund, it was an innovative way to rebuild the city. I've been in Congress a little over a year, and I've been campaigning since I arrived in Congress. But while other politicians are campaigning for re-election, I'm campaigning to build the value of this region in a national and in a global context, and here's why. Yes, we are in a competitive global marketplace, but being in Congress, it became clear to me that our country competes globally, not as a nation, but as a group of regions. So that district that Professor Hammer showed up, that's drawn very bizarrely, but also too, I'm trained as a painter, so I kind of like abstract shapes. That district provides me personally and us collectively with a great way to unify our region, Detroit, Wayne County, and Oakland County, in a way that we can compete powerfully globally. So I see this as a great opportunity, not only politically, but also for us economically. But in any event, so my whole mantra in Congress has been, rebuild Metro Detroit. That's how you renew America's economy. Because we have the manufacturing know-how, we have Wayne State University, we have the vacant land that we can attract new businesses in. So, but many people would say, yes, in Congress, Hansen, we got it. Detroit's valuable. We know that you were the arsenal of democracy. You still have those assets here that could help us be competitive globally. But we in Congress don't have the money. So I worked with other Republicans who were bright and politically savvy, and I came up with an idea of this. We need to allow Detroiters to keep their tax dollars here in Detroit. So essentially this, Detroit Jobs Trust Fund provides for this to happen. The federal taxes that businesses and individuals pay from Detroit to the IRS each year approximates $2 billion. Instead of that money going to the U.S. Treasury directly, under my bill it would go into a federally protected trust fund. The reason why it has to be that way is because of the perception of mismanagement by local elected officials. We had to have that money protected in a way. My bill would capture those taxes for a period of 5 years. We're looking at $10 billion. That money would be used to pay down the general obligation debt, to eliminate the city income tax on residents and non-residents, and then the remainder would go into what those areas that I talked to you about that we needed to improve: public safety, public education, job training, improving our infrastructure that would create jobs. So essentially that is the proposal, is that we would keep our federal tax dollars here. See, that resonated with certain conservatives because it was actually keeping the money here in Detroit as opposed to sending it to the big bad government largesse. But also for those of us who believe that government can work for the common good like I do, it pools our money together to realize the most sustainable way to get Detroit out of this financial crisis isn't just through layoffs, through outsourcing, through selling assets. It's also by building our economic base, creating jobs throughout the city, the region, but also throughout the country. It's by doing both. putting in the financial controls, but also investing in the city in a way to create that business climate of safe streets, good schools, low cost of living and doing business. That together with an efficient, effective government spending plan would turn the city around. So that's the long-term plan. What I'm asking for right now is more along the lines of the emergency relief package, and I was supposed to meet with the mayor this morning at 7:30, but unfortunately, he is ill. But I have the legislation drafted right now, which is modeled on two acts of Congress that were adopted in 1975 and 1978 to help provide relief for New York City. I've also consulted, which is like this guy that I really looked up to, Felix Rohatyn, who ended up being one of the masterminds on putting that package together to help rescue New York City from bankruptcy. I consulted with him a couple of days ago. So that relief is to get at least $125 million in the very short term that the city will need in order to address its immediate cash flow situation. And then I was looking at approximately $1 to $2 billion at least to stabilize the city in the short term as well after we meet those cash flow needs. But I still don't have a figure yet. I'm working with another U.S. senator who has a background in being a turnaround expert, but also who understands the value of investing in the city. So, and then Senator Stabenow and I should be talking this morning. So this is something that we're working on right now. The financial review team that the governor has set up will be making a decision on March 26th. The governor told me last week he doesn't want to appoint an emergency financial manager, but that the law binds him to taking action within 10 days after that review team makes its recommendation. So this is the course that I'm on right now. Now, again, these dire, financial crises that we're in right now, yeah, they're not good for us, but they also provide us with a great opportunity to showcase the value of our city and our region. So that's what I'm using this as well. So the federal relief, and in closing on this point, may not come in one check. It may not come in the form of loan guarantees. It could come in the form of some type of refinancing of our long-term obligations such as pensions or retiree health care, but it also could come in form of an additional grant for a light rail project right here in Detroit, money to help stabilize our housing market, more investment in our troubled Detroit schools. And that's why I had made the pitch to the president a few weeks ago that Detroit needs this type of investment in order for us to become stronger and to create jobs nationally. So the bottom line is the two bills can complement each other. One's short-term, one's longer-term.
Good morning. Tom Stevens, Wayne State University Law School, 1986, and thank you so much. If you can answer this question in this format adequately, you're better than I think you are, but even better, I should say. But I wanted to go back to what you said about taking responsibility as being the answer, and I agree. I've been working in government in Detroit for the last almost 4 years now. And, this crisis that we're in has been the least well-kept secret. It has not exactly snuck up on us.
Right.
Is understatement. And what does it mean to take responsibility in this context? I mean, the Occupy movement is clearly part of the answer. But at the governmental level, we're told in this era that Professor Hammer outlined so well in his opening, this era of budget-cutting fanaticism, that the answer is business responsibilities. We're not supposed to join unions. We're not supposed to talk about civil rights and race. That's playing the race card, and that's bad manners in public. We're not supposed to defend the environment vigorously because that hurts jobs, et cetera, et cetera. So therefore, what are we supposed to do to take responsibility? Because it doesn't look to me like the people who are in place are doing it, frankly. And we've been trying, and we've been failing, and I'm tired of it.
Well, you know what? That kind of attitude that you have will get us the change that we need. It will. So essentially what I mean by responsibility, it's this. You know, a lot of we're all shaped by our own background, our own personal experiences. You know, just like with me. Being African American and then being the son of an immigrant. My mother, who had to endure so much over her lifetime with discrimination, and so much so, and it's sad to say, you know, my mother, one of the last things she told me was not to come back to Detroit. She didn't see any future for me here. And in some sense, I'm only saying this not to disparage my mother, but also just to describe possibly how horrific the situation may have been for her growing up here in the city. She was hoping, I think, when I was a child, that somehow her son could pass as not being African American and not have to deal with what she had to deal with. My father, on the other hand, came to this country in the midst of the Great Depression in the 1930s and viewed everything here as an opportunity. My dad died because of all the dust and dirt he breathed by working in the Ford Rouge foundry in the 30s and the 40s. He worked there before the UAW was able to organize workplace protection. The job that killed him was a job that my dad so revered. He always kept his union badge on his dresser, decades after he had to leave that job. So anyway, I grew up with these two kind of polarized view of the world. I did, unfortunately, for a time inherit that victim's mentality. That was part of the culture of my neighborhood. But I always had to fight to see everything in this country that it has to offer you as an opportunity. So, when I talk about responsibility, I say this, is that we as people, it doesn't matter, look, I don't care how you've been discriminated against, how people have treated you. In this country, based on our Declaration of Independence, on our Constitution, on our legal system, we all have equal power, but we only can really enjoy it if we own it, recognize it, and exercise it. That's critical. Just to give you an example, I live downtown. Every weekend I come here, I would see some man going through the garbage dumpsters, either looking for bottles or looking for food. Sometimes I go up to the guys, I talk to them, and invariably they're men. And one guy I'll give you as an example. He was a veteran, a Vietnam veteran, and he had some problems, and he couldn't get any help. So he ended up on the street, and I told him, I said, look, I want you to go to this building around the corner tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. It's in the Fishbones building, and go see so-and-so. They work for Congressman Hansen, Clarke. And he says, well, you know what? Those guys aren't going to do anything for me. They don't give a damn about me, those politicians. I'm saying, no, the congressman will serve you, but you got to go there. He would argue me up and down. I said, look, man, I'm the congressman, you know? So, you know, with my growth and my hoodie on and stuff like that, he probably didn't believe it. But in any event, it's that many times people just don't see what's available to them. Or, you know, I could maybe say the man was justified in it. That he was denied the health care that he needed, the mental health treatment that would have helped stabilize him. And now he's on the street. Sometimes we've got to look at this world as immigrants look at it. It's all opportunity in spite of what's out here. That's how I make it politically. Okay. But anyway, so responsibility that we have, regardless of our situation, we have the power to vote, but we have to do more than vote. We have to speak out on it. Think about it. In another city, a suburban city, would you have allowed, 50% of your kids to drop out of high school? No, you would have recalled the school board. You would have fired the principals, the administrators. You may have actually threatened physical harm on the people, run them out of town. You see what I'm getting at? That's what I mean by responsibility. A revolution, not a violent one, but to act. Look, this country is not perfect. My God, it's not. But the principles on which we were founded on give us the opportunity to work to make this a more perfect union. Now, on the other hand, the responsibility goes on people like me. We've got to get in office and clearly demonstrate our sole focus is not fundraising and not blaming the other party, but it's actually helping people, regardless of their color, regardless of their party, regardless if they live in the city and the suburbs, and not create those divisions that have really undercut economic growth in this region for decades. We both have responsibility. Take ownership. Stop passing the buck. Stop blaming Republicans. Stop blaming Democrats. Work together. You can do that. But recognize ultimately the power is not in the hands of the politicians. You see, over time in this city, the culture grew that power was in the hands of the people who were elected. Mayor Young even campaigned on that. Power for tomorrow was not power by the people. That was in the 60s. Power in the 80s were in the hands of the politicians. We must go back to let people realize that they have the power. They want to change the system. They can't just elect me, elect President Obama, and expect things to change. They must demand that that change occur. So that's why I take initiatives that will call on the public to be engaged, that they demand that Congress take action. I'll be their vehicle for them. Responsibility in that way. It's so important. So if anything, this financial crisis, this symposium causes all of us, calls all of us to go into action. Right now, we don't have time. The time is ticking. We have days left, essentially, to do something. If we want to change the city, change the governance, we have to change the attitude of the people who live in the city, change the mindset of those who hold office. Collectively, then we can make this democracy work together. It's a shared responsibility. Yeah, Jim.
I've been advocating the state and increase that to 20 cents. George Washington had to put his uniform on, get back on his horse, go out to the Western Reserve to get him to pay alcohol taxes. Alcohol taxes are there. Why does the federal government and the state and other states not the level that they have to pay for the cleanup? Draining all the money out of the general funds and out of the state. Very simple.
All right. So, okay, the answer is because the alcohol, beer, and wine lobby, it's powerful in the state level and the congressional level, and they contribute a lot to legislators and members of Congress. Now, that's like a glib answer on my part. It's a true one, but it's glib. His point is, how do we change the system? You got to mobilize the public, man. But see, right now, people, first of all, they don't vote. And then when they vote, they do it, okay, I'm just saying, they do it half-assed. They don't like actually hold people accountable for doing everything after you hire them, because they don't think the system actually responds to them. See, politicians, their whole goal is to stay in office. So, you know, if they feel that the only way they can stay in office is to raise all this money, then they'll go and support people that provide them with the money. I mean, this is all legal. I don't mean to sound like this is illegal or anything like that. That's the key. The only way you can counterbalance that is you've got to be really clear and strong, public, about what you need. Maybe more so than the means, but the outcome, what you want to see. So the objective. And then say, politicians, you work to find a way to get this funded. That's what we want. Look, I believe that our system can work, but it only works if we are engaged. So I do my role. I take on these missions and these causes that I know the people want. It may not seem like the odds are in our favor, but I do this in large part to change the system, to motivate people and to inspire people to actually see that their government can work for them. So Jim, yes, that's a good point. The alcohol taxes, that's one way to fund what we need. I firmly believe that's why we have a government. We pool our resources together to work for the common good. Yeah, this is a land of opportunity, but if you are struggling and you're down and out, you don't have to go it alone. We're here to help out. We, as a people, are here to help each other out.
Thank you, Congressman Clarke. Gave us a very energizing speech and call to action, and I think it's a great segue into our first panel on emergency managers. Thank you again for speaking.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thanks a lot, everybody. Remember,